Hey, I read some books last year, and in case you don't want to go peruse all of my reviews on my channel, let us talk about my top 5. I think there are probably at least 1 or 2 books on this list you probably haven't heard of. Some you definitely have heard of, and there is even a nonfiction book. Yes, a nonfiction book on this list. I know, how crazy is it going to get? But don't worry, it's not self-help. All right, well, let us talk about my 5 favorite books I read in 2022. Book number 5 is The Church Gore by Patrick Coleman. Now, I discovered this book when I was checking up on my buddy, Nick Pizzolatto, the writer of the season 1 of True Detective. Well, I guess he wrote all of them, but season 1 is by far the best one. I was curious what he was up to, and so I looked him up. I did a little Googling, and I found out that he is going to adapt this novel into, I believe, a show for FX with none other than Matthew McConaughey. So he's back to his noir roots. I don't know the status of the development, but I'm really looking forward to it, and I knew I wanted to read the novel. And this novel is a modern-day noir story taking place in San Diego, California. It's about a man who's estranged from his wife and his daughter, and he used to be a pastor, of course. That's why it's called the Church Gore. He has even lost his faith, essentially, and he's working as a security guard. He bumps into this young lady, and you can tell she's going to be probably a surrogate for his daughter in a way, but there's this weird relationship of how there's kind of these undertones of being a lover, although it never really happens. But anyway, one of his coworkers gets murdered, and this girl disappears, and so he takes it upon himself, of course, to save the day, go investigate. The thing I love most about this book is the theme or the idea, the underpinnings of it, I guess, the foundation of it. And it's something that I've played with in my own work. In fact, my first novel and my third novel both are toying with this idea. And that idea is that some things are definitely not what they seem to be. Right? We kind of concoct ideas in our head and we act upon them, think that everything has meaning when not everything does have a meaning. And I think that's just part of the human condition, right? We always think that there's a reason for something when in fact, sometimes there's just no reason for it. And this book is a cool twist on the noir genre because it takes place in modern day California, or I believe the early 2000s, something like that. And so it's a very different setting than you're used to. It's not kind of like an East Coast dark and gloomy city, right? It's sunny California. Our buddy, our protagonist, he goes out and surfs. He has burritos. It's a good time, but it's also a dark time. And I really enjoyed just the writing of the story, the characterization. I can't recommend it enough. So go check out The Churchgoer by Patrick Coleman. Book number 4. This is my self-help, my nonfiction recommendation. I'm just kidding. It's not. It's called The Creative Gene. It is by Hideo Kojima, very famous video game developer. He first got famous with his Metal Gear series, most recently Death Stranding with his new studio, Kojima Productions. Why I included this book on the list is because if you're a creative person, I'm a writer, clearly, and so things like this are important to me. I think that Kojima and I have very similar philosophies on inspiration and our influences, and that's exactly what this book is about. It's a series of essays that he's written over the years that are about specific things, right? So every single essay will be about a book or a film. It's mostly books. Even there's some music in there as well. But he talks about not only how they've influenced him creatively, but where he was in his life at the time when he experienced this and how it infected him personally. And I think that's what's so cool about it is that he's not just honoring his influences here, right? He goes into painstaking detail, not only to talk about how it affected him, but also listing out a synopsis of the book, if it is a book. So it's almost like not just cataloging what influences him, but it's sharing those influences with you. And if you're a creative person, I think you're going to get a lot out of it. And if you're just into going behind the scenes and inside the mind of Kojima and seeing maybe how he ticks, then this is a good one too. This is honestly a book that I would like to write someday. Not that I'll ever be famous enough to anyone will give a crap about what influenced me. But it's like I said, look behind me. All of these books behind me. I have art on my walls as well. You can't see all of it, obviously. But I try to surround myself in things that inspire me, right? I don't want to just put myself up on a pedestal, right? And you'd think that someone like Kojima, who's accomplished so much in his life, would put himself up on this pedestal and just kind of say, hey, this is all me. I'm a creative genius. I'm a virtuoso. But no, what he does is he actually assembled a book honoring all of these people that have come before him, that have influenced his life and his work, and just to tell everybody, to tell the world that this is not just me. This is all of the things I consume. And he seems like a humble guy. I don't really know if he is, but This book definitely leans in that direction. And more than anything, it really teaches us to get out of our own heads, right? We're not the best at what we do. We got to understand that we are standing on the shoulders of those who came before us, and that we should not only honor those people, but we should tell everybody about them. So at the very least, I think you will get some good recommendations of books to read, films to watch, music to listen to if you are not a creative. But if you are, I highly, highly recommend The Creative Gene by Hideo Kojima. Book number 3, Knock 'em Stiff by Donald Ray Pollock. This is a good old Southern Gothic. This is actually the second novel I read of Donald Ray Pollock's. This is more of an anthology. It's a collection of short stories that are interconnected loosely, right? It all takes place in a small town called Knock 'em Stiff in Southern Ohio. And it's gritty, it's grimy, it's full of colorful characters. But like I said, the first novel I read of Donald Ray Pollock was The Devil All the Time. It's also a Netflix show. Highly recommend the book over the film. The film, I think, did as good of a job as it could have done, right? There's just so much more breathing room it needed because the novel is not super short. It's not crazy long, but it needed to be a series or something like that to really convey what it was trying to do. And you can tell that Knock 'em Stiff, this book, was really Donald Ray Pollock experimenting. He was learning. He was testing the ground. He was laying the groundwork, laying the foundation for what that novel became. But this book is still very special to me. I'm not sure why I'm drawn to this region. Definitely know why I'm drawn to the tone, but it's really inspired me in my own work to dabble with the anthology format, right? A collection of these shorter stories that are connected. And I also dedicated an entire read-along series to this book. And if you don't know what that is, it's where I create a video series where I read an entire book, not to you. I talk about it, I discuss it story by story, or in 50-page chunks or so. But if you would like to read along with me from the past, then check out the playlist on my channel. But it's bleak and it's beautiful and it's full of some of the most tragic and disgusting characters you will ever meet. It's very atmospheric, character-driven, and I just didn't want it to end. That's all I can say, really. I remember getting to the end of it and just being very disappointed that there wasn't more. But thankfully, Donald Ray Pollock has another novel, which I'm going to get to very soon, called The Heavenly Table. Book 2, Tender is the Flesh by Agustina Bastarrica. I absolutely love this book. It is this bleak dystopian novel in the very best way. And when you read the description, when I talk about the premise, you're going to think, I know what this is about. It's going to be too on the nose. It's going to be too political, but I don't really think that's what it is about. But if you want to hear my full thoughts, please check out my review. I even go into more spoilery territory about how I felt about the ending. It is the near future, and there is a terrible disease that has infected all living things on Earth, except humans, of course. And what happens is if a human consumes one of these animals or comes in contact with them, they too will get infected with it and die. And so inevitably what happens is we got to kill all the animals, right? We got to kill all the animals, which means we ran out of food because not everybody's vegan yet, folks. Not everybody's vegan. So what we have to do, or well, not have to do, but what we do is we breed humans for meat. Yes, we breed humans for meat. And we follow this man named Marco who is estranged from his wife. His son has died. And he works at these processing plants. And so we get a very in-depth look at what processing is and all of the very grisly details about the society and how this man is coping with it. It's very character-driven with beautiful, beautiful writing. And it's definitely a book I think I'm going to come back to. And it's really short, so it shouldn't take much of your time. But is this book about animal cruelty? Is it about our reliance on breeding animals for food? I don't really think so. When you get into this, and if you read closely, it's really, to me anyway, talking about how easy it is for us to acclimate to anything, right? No matter how disgusting or grisly something might be, somehow we adapt. And it's a strange thing, and to me, that's explored very thoroughly in this book. It's about us. It's about humans. It's not so much about what we do, but how we can get used to anything almost. Highly, highly recommend this book. Clearly, it's number 2 on this list. It's not for people with a weak stomach, but I also don't want you to think it is gratuitous in that fashion. Book number 1. Do I really need to talk about this book? It is The Road by Cormac McCarthy, winner of the Pulitzer Prize in 2006, the year it came out. If you don't know what it's about a man and a boy in the apocalypse, a father and a son, and they're just trudging across this waste seemingly aimlessly, with the exception of trying to find the coast where maybe there's hope, but they come in contact with some all right people, some very terrible people, as you might imagine, and we're just down in the dirt with them, man. We're crawling through the mud. We're eating these beans out of cans with them. We're observing the horrors of the world, right? And how bleak and hopeless everything really is. And this is actually the only perfect score I've ever given on a book. And I've been really rethinking how I approach reviews on books. And it comes down to, do I think anything was extraneous? Do I think anything should have been cut? Do I think anything should have been changed? Was the pace too slow? Did I feel like the story wasn't satisfying, the character work, and so on and so forth? And that's why I gave this book a perfect 10. I wouldn't change a thing. I wouldn't change a word in this book. And I know it's not for everybody. It's a sad story. It can be a bit plotting because there are no chapters, right? It's a short book. I think it's only about 65,000 words, but there's no chapter breaks. And to me, I've read, and I can agree with this. Cormac McCarthy's never said this, but the entire point of that seemed to be to put you in the shoes of these characters, right? There's no breaks. There's no rest stops in this terrible, terrible world. He wrote this book when his boy was very, very young, and he had a son very late in life, and you can just tell that this is breathing with all of the things that he wants to say to his son. And it's really cool that his kid has something like this from a man who is very, very good with words. This is a timeless novel, and in fact, this is the second time I've read it. I read it way back when it came out, and I read it along again with a read-along. So if you'd want to read along with me again in the past, check out the playlist. And I'm almost positive I'm going to return to it down the road. Oh, that was really bad. I didn't mean that, I swear. But those are my 5 favorite novels I read last year in 2022. Tell me, what are yours? I'd love to hear them. Drop them in the comments below. Do you think any of my picks are terrible? But more than that, I'm looking for something to read. So if you have something great, drop it in the comments like I said. I would love to hear your opinions. Well, that is it for me. Thanks for hanging out with me. Thanks for watching. And I will see you in the next one. Bye.